Morning, everyone. Welcome to our March meeting. If people want to grab something to eat, we're going to get started so that we can get out of here by 9:30. Let Charlie get his showroom back. But we're thrilled to be here this morning, and we're glad that everybody was able to come. Charlie's got a great breakfast that he has provided us this morning. I have to give Charlie a round of applause. And the subject of today's meeting is going to be about the visioning committee and the update, and we'll hear about that from Michael Hale shortly. Also, we have opportunity to pay dues. If people want to pay dues today, Jeanette's here. She can accept your dues for 2017. And with that, I would like to turn it over to Charlie to give us a little update on his business and the industry and what's going on.
I just want to thank everybody for coming. It's always a good time having the BPA here and having a little breakfast, and nice seeing everybody. I got to thank Mike Maloney from the Charlton House for helping me out in the jam. I came off vacation. I realized I didn't phone call him before that, and I called him Monday afternoon. He said, "I got you covered. I got you covered." I called him yesterday afternoon. I hadn't heard anything. I was like, "You okay, Mike?" He goes, "I got you covered." But sincerely, I just, I gotta say, it's very good to be on Route 50. I'm excited about the presentation that you're gonna see today. It's a great aspect of what's going on Route 50. I gotta thank every one of the committees. From my point of view, and being a lifelong Burnt Hills resident, the committees that are meeting. There's a lot of work happening. There's a lot of stuff under the radar, so to speak, and a lot of times. I think it was 16. Mike, was it 16, 18 meetings?
16 so far. This
16,
is our 17.
something like that. And then the subcommittees meet and everything else. And I got to thank Mike for doing that. And it's been great. It's not over yet. Obviously, it's a work in progress, but it's an awesome thing to actually see something happening in Burnt Hills. It's pretty amazing. I got to say that. So it's pretty good. Thanks again for coming. Business is good. I got to ask you, if you're looking for a car, stop and see me. I'll be more than happy to take care of that and all your transportation needs. We still do have a body shop out back, and the guys out in the shop are doing a fine job for me. And we've been here I think it's 45 years this year, something like that. I can't remember, but time flies when you're having fun and doing what you got to do. So, but with that, I thanks for coming. Enjoy a little breakfast. Thanks again to Mike, and thanks again for coming. I appreciate it. Okay.
And now I'd like to introduce Michael Hale, Chair of the Visioning Committee.
Thanks, Rick. So, it was, as mentioned, roughly about 18 months ago that the BPA board decided that it might be a good idea, under the circumstances of the towns locally having some challenges with their zoning and construction and projects, that we should establish a visioning committee. I was heisted to do the chairmanship of that committee, and we've had now, this will be our 17th meeting over those roughly 18-month period. And we set out to really kind of think about where we will be in 20 years, or even 35 years. And what are we looking at in the future? So in order to establish our train of thought, we had to think about what makes up a community. So we had to kind of connect the dots and see what things we would expect to see when we walk or drive into a community that we really like. Why do we like it? Because of unique shops and restaurants, lodging places, B&Bs, places to stay, outdoor activities, nature hikes and walks, parks, biking, trails, and activities, performances on the greens, things like that. All these things kind of make up the community, so we had to establish a mindset of the kind of things that we would like to see in this community. We also thought about our customers. as a business-oriented group, we obviously always think about our customers. So does a town when thinking about how they want to grow. Customers are, of course, the local residents, tourists, travel-through guests, reunion folks that come back year after year. There's probably 5, 7, 8 more reunions every year that come to town. Where do they stay? Where do they eat? People that attend sporting events at the school district. There's huge groups of people that come every year for those things throughout the seasons. Residents that moved away come back to visit family, friends. Where do they stay? Where do they eat? And of course, regional residents that kind of want to have a place closer to home to go see things and experience unique experiences. We have to think about Main Street. What is Main Street? What's on it? What kinds of shops, restaurants, activities. We've spent a lot of time trying to think about what kind of things might we expect to see here along the Route 50 corridor and on Main Street. And this is just a list. I won't read them all, but you can see food shops, restaurants, health and energy drinks, artwork and framing, florists. We have some of those things. Do we have all these things? Certainly not, but we have to think about which of those we would like to see along Main Street. Such as, this type of shop in Chatham, a bookstore, right on the street. This is Putnam Market in Saratoga Springs, so I think most of you are probably familiar with that. It's a very popular place. This is a concert on the green in Hamilton. These are things that bring people together in your downtown. We've thought about a roundabout. There's been a lot of discussion about whether or not there should be or shouldn't be a roundabout at the Route 50 Lake Hill intersection. What would that look like? What would be in the middle of it? A monument? Some kind of sign? Or perhaps the proverbial clock? Town of Glenville, neighboring, just got their clock just the last few weeks. They're very proud of it. They had a ceremony and everything about that. So that's a way to get yourself an identity, kind of a town center identity. The marketing committee established, along with the Route 50 committee, kind of a focus, if you will, on what really makes up our core crossroads of our community. It was determined that the Lake Hill Route 50 intersection, clearly from a future planning standpoint, is that focal point. And it extends down to Henseltown Road at the bottom, up north to just beyond where we are right now. That extent, about a half mile long, really kind of represents the core crossroads of our community. That's over the period of a year and a half, we've established that that really is it. We obviously recognize as a group that it clearly has other focal points. The Janice V. Corners, for example, area. The Village of Ballston Spa, clearly. And as you go south into Glenville, you see a transition into their more business district area. So this is just another one of those stopping points, one of those nodes, if you will, that is key and central to our line of thinking. We've established what we think could be a workable community slogan. And perhaps this can be extended further, refined. This is just a first grasp at the kind of visual you might see. This is a kind of a placeholder for the BH-BL community. Love the lifestyle, neighbors, farms, and business. That, by the way, on top is the proposed STEM extension on the high school. So what's been happening over the past 18 months or so? We did, as I mentioned, assign action teams to help facilitate the implementation of our vision. We've got the Route 50 corridor team, the Parks and Connecting Trails team, Agriculture and Heritage Sites team, and Marketing team. So these teams have been meeting independently and presenting their information to the committee as a whole at these meetings as well, and come up with a lot of the things I just mentioned to you. The town of Ballston is currently and expecting in April to kickstart their micro enterprise grant that they recently received, a $200,000 micro enterprise grant that will give opportunity for businesses that are of certain income level or that are able to provide employment to those of a certain income level some business startup and employment. So that'll be kicking in soon. If you know somebody starting a business or that can benefit from this, certainly let them know. The town of Ballston is currently active in their zoning amendments. That happened in part as a result of the conversations that we've been having over the past year and a half. And the town of Glenville, same thing, has been doing work toward their own zoning amendments. And they've had 2 moratoriums, in fact, that they've established in order to try to facilitate that without letting things go. There's been several redevelopment projects either approved or that are pending. There's a flex space building site that was just approved up at the corner of Route 50 and Charlton Road. Nice front position building group with parking in the rear that was just approved by the planning board. So you'll be seeing some work at that intersection in the southwest corner pretty soon. The CVS was just approved on the corner of Lake Hill and Route 50 where the old homestead used to be. The Stewart Shops is not in the meetings yet, but they've purportedly got contract on the plaza that's on the southeast corner of that intersection. So we can look forward perhaps to them coming in with a plan soon. There's a gas station, USA Gas, that has come in with plans. They've set back and had to redo those plans, so we're not sure where they are, but that's another possible improvement to that intersection where the old gas station is. And we've got Spinney Group's residential. We have a representative, Morgan Spinney, here. That's a PUD project that's 55 and older related community of higher density residential buildings that will provide a great deal of taxable property in the town. That's just north near Wakeman Road. And there's another one that's not on this list. Katz is another PUD that's pending, and some other PUDs that are coming along in town that will provide a large number of residential units. And phase 1 of the Ballston Lake Public Sewer Project is being engineered as we speak. Many of you probably, if you're in the district, may have even gone to vote for that referendum. That referendum passed. The fire district passed that they would go ahead and go forward with that. Well, sorry, I mixed up the referendum with the fire district. Anyway, that was a CVS. But the public sewers project was passed. It's being engineered, and now they're looking forward. And some of you may have seen the signs over here. A new project that is being undertaken right now, and Ed Hernandez from the Adirondack Mountain Engineering Group. This is part of his presentation. I've only taken some of his slides from his presentation to kind of give you a quick summary. But they're now looking at a sewer study for the Route 50 corridor. The town had received some grant money that helped to facilitate and kickstart this program. So they hired Ed Hernandez to do that. So he's looking at the Route 50 study. These are those 2 maps here. They've got 2 options that they've looked at for the potential sewer expansion in the Route 50 corridor. The first is in 2 sections, north and south. The south section from the town of Glenville town line up to the north end of Little's Road and passing through this area where we are today. And the north section from Wakeman Road north to McCrae Hill Road, roughly speaking. Those 2 sections together are part of a first option. And the second option is basically those 2 sections plus everything in between. So what do they look like in detail? The southern section, or gravity option 1A, that's a gravity sewer option for the south area going by here. We look at, from a total cost of that type of a program, of about $6.7 million, and total project cost with engineering and all that about $8.3 million for just this south section with gravity sewers. The north section, if that were employed at the same time, would come up with a total cost of about $2.6 million. So a total cost of around $10.1 million, or $11 million actually, about $11 million and change. If we go with option 2, the estimates are that the total approximate cost would be about $10.1 million, or about 10% less than a separated project. So there's some savings in doing a complete project. The difference here is that the costs to do these different phases have different implications. When you have low pressure sewers, it requires that each house have a grinder pump, and that low pressure sewer, it feeds the low pressure sewers to pump stations. So the individual costs for individual hookups for a pressure system are much greater. Whereas for a gravity system, the individual cost per unit or house is a lot less. So while you look at option 1 and option 2, you'll see that the annual cost expected if we separate the two for the south area would be about $828 per year, plus the hookup cost of about $3,500 here for that phase 1A. For service area 2A, for the north section, you'd have an annual cost to the user of $462. And this is based on a EDU, or the equivalent of a single-family home. So if there's a business that's equivalent to 10 single-family homes, it would be that cost times 10. So you think of it in those terms. So $462 per EDU for the north area with a low-pressure sewer. So even though the upfront cost is much higher, the yearly cost is a little bit lower. On option 2, it was thought because of it being the whole length, the startup would be a low-pressure sewer. So the individual startup at the initiation would be that higher cost, but the average cost goes down. It's about $600. So it's somewhere, it falls in between the two. So some people would benefit by paying a little bit less. Some would have to pay a little bit more with those two options. So next steps with respect to the sewer, it's important to say that these design plans, and there's again a lot more detail that Ed Hernandez has given with respect to specifics on the numbers of units and the breakdowns and all that. I didn't want to get into all that nitty-gritty today, but if they go forward with a plan, and this is just conceptual, there's no reason to think that these are it. There could be a lot of variations. Like, for example, Sealy Estates was not factored into this yet, and they're very close to Route 50. This plan basically looked at most of the properties that are adjacent to or fronting on Route 50. They had to draw a line somewhere. So that's how this study was established, so you know there's going to be some variation. So first, the town is going to have to decide how they want to proceed with an incremental system or a separate system. One of the benefits to, or drawbacks to a separate system, I should say, is that if there is some expansion needed for the future to go south and west or to east into Sealy and other places around that are adjacent to and beyond within those existing residential subdivisions, there's a problem with being able to get that sewer where it needs to go in terms of capacity. If you have a complete system, some of those problems with having to upgrade systems in order to expand are a lot less problematic. So there's pluses and minuses to doing a system like that. So the board will have to decide that. They'll have to pick their option, and if they do, they'll have to proceed with their map plan and report and go through the environmental review process and hold the public hearing and so on. All the same things that we saw with phase 1 would have to be implemented for this phase. And because it is in the watershed, same as the first phase, they would probably have a very good chance of getting some of the same environmental facilities grant funding that they got for the first phase for this one. So it would help alleviate some of those costs. So next step for us in the visioning committee and for the BPA is to gather more feedback. We can talk about where we've been, we can talk about where we want to go, and this is part of what we want to do today, is gather some feedback from you folks and continue to craft this vision for the 20 years ongoing. The towns, both Glenville and Ballston, will be finalizing their zoning, their comp plans And there's sewer plans in the coming weeks and months. There's going to be ongoing some redevelopment of that Route 50 Lake Hill Road corners. And as sewer plans begin to develop further, we're going to start seeing some redevelopment along this corridor. So zoning and that sewer district, coming together, it's very important how they come together and the timing of that. And moreover, the success of the sewer system is going to depend upon the private and public partnerships and coordination in order to make this happen. The PUDs, for example, that are proposed make up a large component of the EDUs, if you will, that would be part of that system that hold that cost to a manageable level. The average state cost, in fact, for an EDU statewide is about $909. If you go above that average established cost, you have to get special permission, if you will, from the state to charge more than that. And if you saw before, the highest level with even the split version was about $828 per EDU. So without those PUDs, that cost would be elevated substantially. So it's a consideration to be made for that public-private partnership. And then there's been a lot of discussion. In fact, it was stated once again in the last meeting that a vision for this Route 50 corridor, an actual vision plan, would be well received by the town. In fact, it was indicated in that meeting with Tim Sapanek present that it might be worthwhile to have such a plan incorporated along with their zoning as an appendix. So that's where we are. So now we have to think about what are our priorities for 2017. Development patterns, what do we like to see? What are we looking at with existing and proposed parks and recreation? We see Hawkwood Park, for example, has been open. The parking lot is there, the sign is up, the trails are being improved. That's an ongoing project. It's a wonderful site if you haven't been out there. It's awesome. Good trails, historic structures, archaeological information out there. It's really cool. Agritourism and agricultural business, a high priority for this area. We certainly are and have a good, strong agricultural heritage here. So how do we continue to facilitate and celebrate that? How do we encourage shops and restaurants to get here? Certainly sewers are going to be a big part of that for restaurants, in fact, totally relying on sewers to be able to function the way they need to. So with that, we'd just like to send it out to you and have some of your own feedback. What do you think we should be prioritizing as we go forward with our visioning committees over the next several months? And that's what I have.
So at this point, one of the things that I think we've been looking to get, and this is a great venue to do it because we're in the commercial corridor in terms of what we've defined as the commercial core. We're at the north end of that. There's a lot going on, the redevelopment of what will probably be CVS and then possibly Stewart's across the street, maybe a gas station. There's things that are happening regardless of whether there's a visioning committee or even a BPA. But the unique aspect, I think, now is that we're in a position to potentially influence that in a way that benefits businesses, that benefits homeowners, benefits farms as specialized businesses. So that's really what we'd like to spend the remainder of this morning, in addition to networking and enjoying the food, is to get feedback from the community in terms of what types of businesses and what types of parks, connectivity, the things that Michael presented on, what types of information or ideas that stimulate in your mind, or what questions, just as important, what questions do people have? Since we have good representation of not only the BPA board but the visioning committee here, we're probably in a good position to at least answer what we can and bring back to the visioning committee that which we can't. So with that, I'd like to sort of open up the floor and facilitate hopefully a lively discussion.
Is there any part of the visioning committee that actually has a vision for the style of development on Route 50 so that it has a pattern and has a welcoming when people arrive and has this particular look to it? And will that be part and participle for developers who come in that must, we could say, toe the mark and stay within. As our great friends in Saratoga Springs, I was a businessman up there for 30 years, and when they did Broadway, you had to toe the mark to look, and you can see what has happened to the development.
Right.
And I would hope that vision is in that committee for Burngeld.
We've talked a great deal about branding, community branding, and what common shapes and visuals you'd like to see happen here in that same regard. We've talked about design standards as opposed to design guidelines. And the town has previously, with their current comprehensive plan, established some framework for those type of guidelines, but they aren't yet put into solid standards. So yes, we've been in discussions with the town on that, and we're hopeful that they will implement some of these things. The Route 50 visual that I mentioned is one of those things. It's to try to get to what we'd like to see things look like here, so that we can kind of set the stage for developers that come in the future. Once sewers are here, that's going to change the whole picture.
Oh, yeah.
So it's going to be difficult under the existing conditions to affect that kind of material change that you want to see. So yeah, that's been a big part of the discussion, and we're hopeful that it flows through in the discussion. So we will continue that for sure.
Good.
The town has invited us, in fact, to comment on some of the projects, and CVS is an example. They invited us to provide some feedback on just that, and we provided some lighting recommendations for some historical lighting fixtures that might be beneficial to the town center, and they've advised their applicant to do just that. So that's one of the things that we are active in.
Sidewalks and trees between the sidewalks and the road, and just kinds of things that, if you're paying attention to the details, that matter. So, and if you have a vision that you can plug into, it just makes it that much easier. Michael provided with the leadership for, I don't know, 4-page letter with very detailed input in terms of the zoning recommendations that the town's considering right now to do just exactly what you're talking about: setbacks, parking, greenery, landscaping aspects of it. So otherwise you kind of get what you get, right, in terms of things happening. If you don't have a vision, it just sort of happens as it goes. Morgan?
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to introduce myself as well, by the way. My name is Morgan Roofman, in case anyone hasn't had a chance to meet me. I'm with the Spinney Group, as Mike mentioned. And we're located up there on Wakeman Road, where 50 comes up in Wakeman. And we acquired the property